Hello everyone and welcome to my channel once again. Now, before you leave, and I know that most of you do, it's actually more than 50% of people in the first minute because, I get it, you just come in, see like the clickbaits, which actually don't exist in my builds, copy paste the build and you go back to playing Diablo 4. But I want to tell you some important stuff. The first one is that this will be a two-part video, okay? The first part will be kind of a comparison between my build, like a super optimized build of a theory crafter, versus, Rob's build, who is like a content creator, first, and then like a gamer and, builder second or third. Okay, and how much of a difference, essentially the same builds with same aspects, etc., there can be by just optimizing the Paragon board to the fullest. Okay, now this by no means is meant as like an offense, or attack on Rob. He's a great content creator, okay, who has been working hard for the past years to get, all of the subscribers and viewers that watch him and love him, and yeah, congratulations on that, and I hope he will grow even further. And the thumbnail obviously is more like a fun, but I also kind of wanted to point out something that really bothers me with his videos, because I'm very active on the D4 Discord, okay, where I try to help people as much as I can in terms of Barbarian and even Rogue, at least in the past. And there are hundreds of people commenting every day asking, I am using Rob's build, I have the same gear, same Ubers, why my build sucks, why I do no damage, why I survive nothing, etc. Well, part of that is because they probably don't watch the whole video of Rob's either, so they don't know how the build actually works. And the other thing is that, the first minute of Rob's videos and other content creators, okay, not just Rob, but other content creators as well, starts with just insane clickbait, world tier 1 dummies, even different aspects. Like if you actually just like check the buffs, in the clickbait videos, they are different than what is actually in the build and what is shown later, like, like in the middle of the video, etc. So it's like artificially, increased damage, even like tenfold and shit like that. And that's the only thing that people see, right? Because as I said, more than 50% leave after the first minute. So from a business point of view, it makes sense to put the clickbait there before they leave, and then they just copy, then they just subscribe and copy the build because they see the clickbait, right? But yeah, it creates a lot of confusion, an insane amount of confusion, and I don't think it's I don't think it's a good thing, right? So, and the other thing I would like to say is huge thanks to you guys, like, huge thanks to you guys, because like, you are the reason why I keep doing videos. You are the reason why I keep doing builds and trying to optimize the builds as much as I humanly can, okay? Because like waking up to all of those kind comments from you guys, that's what keeps me going. I would probably not even play Diablo 4 like at this point. I played a lot of it. Like there are other games I would like to try, right? But thanks to you, I'm super excited to play Diablo, to try new builds, to test new stuff. Okay, and there are even people helping me with that, namely like Balance or Kazmak from the D4 Discord, like super kind guys that throughout the season have been helping me with obtaining gear so that I can do the tests, so that I can optimize my builds, and yeah, more guys like that. I mean, obviously I don't mean more guys who give me gear, or even gold or something. I mean, more kind people like those guys helping the community and helping the players around them. So I hope you will enjoy the video. Now that you have listened to the important stuff, I leave it up to you whether you want to actually learn how the build works or whether you just want to copy the board and leave. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's start with watching Rob's video where he showcases his bleed build against the training dummies, but this time not at the beginning of the video with a lot of clickbaits and world tier 1 dummies, etc., but a normal build exactly as it is shown in the video against world tier 4 dummies, with the only buff being the elixir. Okay, so let's start.
Already. And look, we can just go like this. If we can hit them.
Okay, he's now like spreading the bleeds to showcase Rage of Harrogath. So like 17 million. Okay, he used Rupture, so that kind of, you know, diminishes the value because you can no longer see the bleeds because they got rid of. So let's wait a little bit longer.
It goes pretty fast.
It's like 15 million, but he did lose Berserking at there, as you can see.
Make this even faster if you go with Marshall and stuff. You don't
so soon he will have Breath of the Berserker up. Okay, so now he uses Breath of the Berserker, and you can see 19 million, 18, 18, you know, 20 there. Okay, 22, 24. I mean, okay, so like average, but he did use Rupture there at the beginning and then lost Zerking, but the average was like, let's say 18 to 20 million. Okay, let's make it 20. Let's just make it 20 million was like the average damage by quite a lot of time of attacking the dummies, meaning the bleeds were already pretty stacked. He had a lot of stacks of the Rend damage over time effect, and like, yeah, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad, you know, especially for someone who's probably not maining Rend build like I am, for example. I'm a Rend and Hota Barbarian main, but in season 3 just Rend because I got tired of Hota due to playing it, you know, throughout the whole season 2. So let's now see what you can actually do with a Rend build when you optimize it. Okay, and my build essentially is like the same. Okay, we have the same aspects. You know, pretty much the same skill tree, just different Paragon board. And there's the difference between his and my build, and that's I am using, okay, the other weapon. I am using accelerating on my two-hander, okay? And limitless on my gloves, okay? Or like you can use it on one hand, whatever. But the double value of an aspect is accelerating for me, okay? Let's start with the reasoning why. The server cycle is half a second. All of the damage over time effects for every class in the game happen in that server cycle. So damage over time effects actually benefit the most out of all skills in attack speed. You really, like, if you're just focusing on the highest possible damage with the damage over time effect, you do want quite a lot of attack speed, okay? I really hope that with the addition of Gauntlet, they will also give us, you know, they said that they will give us Vampiric Power back. Oh my god, I wish it's gonna be Ravenous, because if it's Ravenous, we get even more attack speeds, like 80% from Ravenous, right? We will be able to remove accelerating, put limitless on the two-hander, and then like berserk ripping on the gloves or something, you know, which would be absolutely insane to combine the best of, you know, everything. So that would be great. But still, this is the reason, and this is the only difference. Like, we have the same Ubers, same everything, okay? So this is like the difference that's in our builds, minus the Paragon board, of course. So yeah, let's get right into it. I will obviously, you know, duplicate the same situation, elite dummies, AoE dummies. As you can see, no snapshotting happening here, okay? None of that bullshit is ever happening in my builds. Like, I am against cheating, okay? Against cheating. And yeah, if you use snapshots, you should be ashamed. And unfortunately, like, I realized that a lot of people do in their videos, you know, to promote their build, or even in PvP, and not just any PvP, just free for all, but even in tournaments. And that, in my opinion, is extremely sad, because you can double or even triple your damage. It's absolutely bonkers. You can snapshot almost everything. I will literally have to do a separate video of snapshots, because there's so many snapshots that, yeah, it just wouldn't fit in. Anyway, you know, elite dummies, the same thing. You know, charge, rupture, use my buffs, and then I just pop some Rends. As you can see, I'm already at over 20 million, almost 30 million, you know, 35 million within a few seconds, okay? Like, this build, it's like an absolute monster, okay? We will soon reach like 40 million. So as you can see, 43, 44, you know, 44 million, like, easy. okay? And it goes higher and higher. Obviously, the longer I attack the dummy, it can go to insane values. The highest I got was 73 million and like a little bit, okay? And a little bit. But obviously, I don't want to sit here for, I don't know, like 5 minutes and just hit the dummies. But as you can see, we are already at more than 50 million, okay? So how come I do more than double the damage than Rob does? Well, it's the Paragon board. So let's have a look at my build planner. Okay, so let's have a look at the build planner of the build that I used in the video against the dummies. This is my less charge focus, more damage over time effect build. So let's start with the gear. Shaco, Rage of Harrogath, like the best chest. You could have seen me using it in my previous builds because it resets the cooldowns, you know, gives us physical damage, and all in all, especially in combination with Martial, is absolutely awesome for gloves. Attack speed, ranks of Rend, strength, and all of that if you want to super min-max just on the damage over time effect, or crit strike chance if you also want to kind of min-max on the charge damage, okay? Because the more you crit, the more damage you do with just the charge, and the less you have to actually use your damage over time effects to kill stuff, at least in current endgame, okay? T-Bolt's Will, the best pants in the game, you know, gives us resource, gives us 40% multiplicative damage increase, just great, okay? Gems in the armor are rubies, so it increases our max life. Now, for the shoes, what you really want here, and like I already explained in my previous video about armor and resistances, is triple resistance and movement speed. Please never ever try to put 2 resistances there and something else. You don't need it. This is not Editor of Zero anymore. Especially the thing you don't need with this build is DR injured. We are never injured. We are using Celic. We are always almost at max life, you know, so please avoid using DR injured here. Go for triple resist and avoid shadow resist, okay? Any 3 resistances apart from shadow resist, and I will explain why later. Now for the two-hander, or all of the weapons, okay? All of the weapons, we are using all stats, strength, vulnerable damage, and damage while berserking. On one of my two-handers, I have Edge Masters. It also boosts the damage of my charge, you know, and my Rapture. This is simply all of the skill damage, okay? Not just core damage. So it's super spec. Then we are using Magnum Opus. Now, this is the bread and butter of the build, okay? The build is focused around this sword. It's such a great sword. Basically, if you're not playing Hoda, all of the builds, or a lot of the builds, are using this sword. It's extremely powerful, okay? Because every Fury that we have when we cast the skill deals 0.4% multiplicative damage increase for every Fury. It's absolutely insane. My build with the Resourcefulness Elixir has 312 Fury. 312 Fury, so we more than double the damage, okay? Then we are using Mace. You really want Mace here, because we are also using Valop skill passive, which increases our damage when using bludgeoning weapons, okay? So you want a Mace here. And then we are using an Axe with accelerating. The reason why this is an Axe and not a sword is because crit strike damage doesn't do anything for our damage over time effects. Unfortunately, my current build is using the sword. I wasn't able to find an Axe. Hopefully I will. But for now, I'm using a sword, which is still good, right? The crit strike damage still helps our charge if we crit, but it doesn't do anything for our damage over time effects. And the additive is actually lower value than damage to healthy. And because all of the enemies usually go from, you know, 100% to 0 with 1 hit or 2 hit stops, damage to healthy is extremely valuable. Now, accelerating, you know, I already explained a little before, or explained period. Server cycle happens in half a second, okay? All of the damage over time effects happen in that half a second of server cycle. So the more attack speed we have, the more damage you do. You really want accelerating on your two-hander. At least if what you're going for is the highest possible damage over time effect, you know, damage over time effect damage. We are using Amethyst in the weaponry to increase our damage over time, obviously, right? Then for the rings, Ring of the Ravenous. Okay, this is the new ring and it's the best item in the game for any bleed build because the Rend's duration is increased by 4%, is your highest damage increase you can possibly get from a jewelry. Every second on that ring is around 20%. 20% for each second, so you really want this at 4 seconds. Then what's important is 3 ranks to all brawling because you want to increase the damage of your charge and decrease its cooldown so that it really is at 0 seconds. And vulnerable, because vulnerable gives us not only the additive but also multiplicative thanks to our Paragon board, which we will get to in a little bit. Okay, the rest, sure, is good. Damage to bleeding, it exists, it's just some additive, sure, why not, right? And crit strike chance doesn't do anything for our damage over time effects, but it does increase the overall damage of the build because the more we crit with charge, you know, the faster we go in like T100 volts that are just AoE. We pretty much kill everything with just charge, right? Then Starless Skies, the highest damage increase possible again for the damage over time effect. But it does come with a negative effect, and that's the micromanagement. You actually, every 3 seconds after you stack it up, or like 2.99 seconds, you have to use your Rend, okay? So that you spend a resource. Silic nor Remaldini counts as spending resource. You have to use your Rend to have this up, okay? So, you know, like stopping the animation or like using Rend instead of just charging to keep Starless Skies up might not be for everyone. Okay, so what you might like do here is, I hopefully have this here, I do use Slaking a Band. That's why I said that you should never have shadow resistances on your boots, because if you use, you know, a 4/4 normal ring, you really want to have it as shadow resistance, because Ring of the Ravenous always come with shadow resistance, and that way, as you can see, still maxing out resistances, okay? So that's why, you know, any of the other resistances on your boots. Now, the advantage of a normal ring is that it also gives you damage while berserking. Damage while berserking turns, again, thanks to our Paragon board, into another multiplicative damage increase. Max Fury for the Magnum Opus, you know, and if we are playing Slaking a Spect, we are generating so much Fury with Rend that we no longer need Furious Rend in the skill tree to give us Fury. So we can like close the gap between the damage of a 4/4 ring and Starless Skies even further, and this has no micromanagement. So like, you know, without thinking about it, you do more damage, you know, or at least you do more damage unless you are micromanaging your Starless Skies. Okay, but the build that I used, you know, the setup that I used in the video was Starless Skies, and then Silic. Thanks to Silic, you know, 54 all stats, awesome movement speed, awesome damage while healthy. It's an additive and quite a huge one. Sure, why? Awesome. Like, why not, right? Awesome. Resource gen, awesome. Maximum resource. Remaldini, right? Remember? 0.4% multiplicative per each Fury. Awesome. Plus, it makes us literally immortal because this build, unlike other builds, is way squishier. And as you could have seen in the like gameplay, okay, my build actually is around 16,000 HP. So you like without the Silic, you can still dish out insane amounts of damage if you use a very strong 4/4 amulet, because it also lets you move like limitless to your amulet, etc. You know, so yeah, it's very powerful, but you will lose the quality of life function of Silic, and that is, it makes you immortal. It just makes you immortal. So yeah, using Silic here. For the skill tree. Oh my god. Okay, good. Finally it works a little bit. 2 points here just to get the Rend, dumping everything in Rend and using Furious Rend. As I told you, that's how we generate Fury without any basic skill and while playing Starless Skies. If you play Slaking Band, instead you take Violent Rend. Violent Rend gives you 12% multiplicative damage increase to Rend when the enemies are vulnerable, which is all the time. And that's why I said it further closes the gap between the two. But for this build, Furious Rend. 3 points imposing presence, like bye-bye pronunciation, right? For some extra max life. Everything else here we gain for free thanks to Shaco. Dumping all points, well, not all points, but taking like all of the nodes in Warcry, because Rage of Harrogath reduces the cooldowns quite a lot. We have very high uptime on the shouts, so having a tons and then extra 10% multiplicative damage increase when it's up is insane, okay? Then we dump everything into charge. Charge is pretty much our like main damage dealer, or you know, one of the 2 main damage dealers. So you want to dump all points there. Enhance charge and power charge, so that it reduces the cooldown of our charge, and it's essentially 0. Aggressive resistances for DR, 2 points prolific fury for resource gen, battle fervor. This is how we have 100% uptime on berserking, because we have no cooldown on our charge. We also have shouts very often. So yeah, 100% uptime on berserking. 3 points Spitfire for some extra damage as well as DR. 1 point into Slaying Strike. Actually very important, okay? Because Slaying Strike increases the damage against injured enemies. In case charge doesn't kill an enemy, it is usually left injured, okay? So it immediately pumps the damage of our bleeds that are left thanks to Ring of the Ravenous. Then Hamstring. Hamstring let us go to Cut to the Bone. Again, increase damage to our bleeding effects. 1 point in Thick Skin that let us go to Counter Offensive. Again, multiplicative damage increase when we are above 50% Fury, which is like all the time. 3 points into Duelist. I already explained why attack speed is so important. So yeah, this is a lot of damage increased. Wallop, which, yeah, again, damage increase. Like, this is super damage focused build, right? But this is also immortal thanks to Seelick. So that's why we are using one-handed mace here, so that we can proc Wallop. Then Tempered Fury and Breath of the Berserker, of course. The key skill passive here is Unconstrained, because Unconstrained is actually more damage than Unbridled Rage if you can keep the Berserking from Breath of the Berserker up, okay? Absolutely insane note. Now, if you look at the Paragon board, we are starting with Ire. Please. There are not many boards where you can use Ire. Okay, we definitely do not use Ire in the Warbringer node. We definitely never, ever, please use Ire in the Carnage. If you see build doing that, run and never look back, because that's just awful. It's actually damage decrease if you get 75 strength over 70 thanks to Carnage, you know, because you lose the 19% damage while berserking by using, as myself here, ambidextrous, for example, that boosts the rare nodes, okay? So please just don't do that. And the reason why I said we don't use it in Warbringer board either is because Warbringer is our dexterity board. It's one of the best dexterity boards in the game. We can completely max out on the exploit glyph to give us vulnerable damage. We never ever take any resistances in the boards, because we always max out resistances with every build, you know, by playing 3 resistances on the boots. Here we are taking extra max fury, again, magnum opus, right, increases our damage by a lot. Then we go to the right using the Carnage board, again, all of the, you know, berserking nodes around, using ambidextrous to boost the rare nodes here, and the Carnage itself, because it gives us attack speed, again, attack speed, you know, server cycle, yada yada yada, insane damage increase. Then we go up where we are using Blood Rage. We are again pathing towards all the Zerking nodes and taking the Blood Rage legendary node. That's what turns, that's why damage while berserking is such an important stat, even though it's an additive, is because this node turns it into multiplicative, and we don't even need to be zerking for this to be active. This is active at all times. This is like the best node you can get. And I am using Imbiber here. Like Blood Rage, most of the time, useful willpower glyphs. Sometimes you can use Strength glyph if it's very good for your pathing. Like you can use even Ire here, or in AOZ, we were using Might here to further boost the damage reduction nodes from bleeding, right? But for the sake of this build, yeah, willpower board. And the reason I'm using IMBIBER is that 57% damage while healthy is higher additive than using Disembowel, which is 46% physical damage over time. So the additive is lower. Physical damage over time also doesn't do anything for our charge, so it has lower value in like the general view of the build. And the secondary effect doesn't proc much, because even though your charge applies the Rend, if the charge actually instant kills the enemy, well, then it doesn't apply the Rend. It's not bleeding. The enemy that dies from charge is not bleeding, so this is not proccing as much as it would in, you know, like AOZ or some kind of harder end game than what we got right now. So IMBIBER here for me for sure. Then we go down using Decimator. Decimator is the best board for vulnerable. As you can see, tons of vulnerable all around here. Okay, boosting it with Marshall. You know, I already explained Marshall, because we are using 2 shouts, they reduce the cooldown of all of our other skills. Then Rage of Harrogath reduces the cooldown of our shouts, you know, and over and over and over again. Plus, yeah, it boosts the damage of our vulnerable nodes. Then we are taking the legendary node Decimator. Thanks to exploit, you know, we are making all of the enemies vulnerable, you know, at all times. Or like, we make the enemies vulnerable, then thanks to using Rend, we refresh the vulnerable so it never falls off. You know, and every new enemy that we hit becomes, you know, vulnerable thanks to our exploit. So we are like non-stop throughout the whole run, you know, because we are attacking new and new enemies, non-stop throughout the run, 10% multiplicative damage increase. Then we go to the right and take Hemorrhage, which turns all of that vulnerable damage that we were stacking everywhere into multiplicative damage increase, you know. Absolutely insane. We are just stacking multipliers everywhere. And here we are also taking the rare node together with the physical damage nodes around, because again, physical damage, not physical damage over time, but physical damage, period, you know, helps the damage of our charge as well. For the Schnitzel stones, we are using, you know, like the evergreen setup. Flash of Adrenaline, Genesis, Duration Support, Tactical Support. This is non-stop 50% increased damage. And then Tempest, Evernight for, you know, secondary Shaco, Resource Support, and Fortify Support. So this is the build planner, baby. And now let's go back into the game, and I will show you what you can do if, for example, you don't have Rage of Harrogath, or if you don't feel maybe safe enough and you want to use your normal chest. So I'm going a little bit crazy. As you can see, again, no snapshotting, no bullshit like that. Let me just browse my stash and get my normal chest. Where is it? Ah, there it is. Okay, so you can also use a normal chest if you don't have Rage of Harrogath with a numbing wrath aspect. That aspect will also make you vulnerable pretty much at all times to, you know, get the DR, but most of all get counter offensive for increased damage. So if I use this chest, what I can then do is, you know, use instead of fortify support, a bleeding support. Now, bleeding support, you know, apart from also like the pet doing damage thanks to it, not just like buffing you, is quite a huge multiplier if the enemies are moving. So it's very strong option as well. But yeah, the enemies are usually not moving, so it's just the damage from the pet that is being buffed. And I actually don't like the way you can scale this to like heaven, okay? Because I'm using Seelic as well as IMBIBER, I have insane attack power, right? Just IMBIBER with Seelic together is over 30,000, you know, or like around 30,000. Look, if I remove Seelic, 19,000 gone, okay? Attack power. So, and the pet scales from attack power. So I really don't want to abuse the like infinite scaling of the pet. So let's again get multiple dummies, elite dummies, I'm not using the elixir now, okay? So the values might be lower, but still you will see that the damage is still insane. Charge, Rupture, all of the buffs. We start pumping Rend, right? So again, we are at almost 30 million. You know, as you can see, we like immediately got fortified. So the damage can like, it's lower, okay? But because we cannot keep our buffs up as often as we can with playing Rage of Harrogath, because it lowers the cooldown of our shouts, but it's still very respectable. So that's like an option you can use. But as you can see, like obviously, okay, the training dummies are not moving. If they were moving, it would be increased by the 30% damage increase, you know, when enemies are moving. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Next time we are going to look at part 2, and part 2 is gonna be, well, first of all, some gameplays against like Form and Duriel, you know, against like T100 Vaults or Nightmare Dungeons, and we will have a look at the charge variant of the build. The reason I split like this is because obviously I don't want to release, you know, an hour and a half a long video. So yeah, in the next one.